What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Wrestling Junkies Podcast. I'm Mr. Cincinnati, and as always, I am joined by the podcast dad himself, Choops. How you doing, man?
Doing fantastic. It's hot outside. I'm happy to be in the AC, but we are doing something that I haven't really been on here as of late. So I'm really excited to
You've
get
not.
back into it. Let's get into an interview with somebody in the wrestling business, and I'll let you talk for a little bit, and then we'll get to him. So how about that?
That's fair. I like it. Very excited about this one tonight. Ahead of their 8-year anniversary show this weekend, it is a 2-night show streaming live on IWTV. We are joined by the resident senior official of H2O Wrestling in New Jersey. Please welcome referee Nick Papagiorgio. Nick, how are you? Congrats on 8 effing years.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it. How are you guys tonight?
Doing good.
Wonderful. This is the best part of the job, seriously, getting to talk to people in the industry. So we are honored that you could join us, especially ahead of such a momentous occasion. So I am done rambling at this point. So now it's your turn to talk. Nick, here at the Wrestling Junkies, we look at anybody in the wrestling business, whether they're wrestlers, ring announcers, referees, you name it. They have an origin story of some kind. So, Nick, if you can, tell us about some of your earliest memories of pro wrestling.
The earliest, both of my grandfathers actually, God rest their souls. They actually were big wrestling fans back in the early '80s, late '80s. You know, I'm an '80s kid. I was born in '81 on there, so more so. My earliest memory of wrestling was probably around like '88, give or take. So you're fooling around in WrestleMania 4, is it? I think, give or take on there. So yeah, they were back to back in down there in AC on there too. On top of them, they did 4 and 5 at one of the casinos down there. But yeah, that's more so. I got into it, ever since I was a kid. Then too, on top of that, watching the early '90s, late '90s, and stuff like that. So, obviously I'm an attitude person, so I came up in the attitude eras, kind of when I was a teenager, and stuff like that. So that's as far as everything else. I'm like, I try to dabble in everything else. I'm like, I kind of try to watch AEW and stuff like that, but I'm like, I kind of can't because that fan base is so toxic. Sorry if I offend anybody on that one. Their fan base is terrible. I'm like, I refer to them as like the early Ring of Honor days around like 04, 05. If you can, remember how their fan base was. And stuff like that. Their fan base was kind of brutal. It's the same way. So, but yeah, that's kind of about it, really, as far as my early parts of me watching wrestling and stuff like that.
What was it like getting into the wrestling business? How did you get your foot in the door there?
I literally just fell into it, to be honest with you. Back when obviously I grew up in Philly, so I was always always around ECW. Yep. Always around, go Birds on there. always around ECW on there. So basically, I would try to go down to a lot of the arena shows, when they were in town before they started traveling a lot and stuff like that. Then obviously ECW folded on there. So then CCW took over. Kind of like filled the gap, so to speak. My first show with my buddies was a Cage of Death 4 in 2002, I think it was, I believe. Watching the mayhem as it was, because they were kind of almost a niche type. They were taking it a lot, so to speak, above extreme, on there, where they were getting a lot of like, state laws coming down on them over in Jersey from the one governor, Christy Whitman, back in the day. That's around 99, 2000 area. Yeah. On there, date myself with that one on there. But yeah, she was coming down with some law, so they kind of had to leave Jersey, and they came over to Philly, and we're watching them ever since. I would get the same seats over and over. I became third row, second row, and then obviously then front row became open. They shifted our seats over. We were behind the commission table. So that's where the ring announcer, the athletic commission, and stuff like that guys would stay there at ringside. They needed a random timekeeper one time. So they grabbed me from over the barricade, so to speak. So I started doing that for about maybe 8 months, give or take. Then I fell into ring announcing. The one booker, they were doing B shows, so to speak, during the week for like the students, and they needed a ring announcer because the other guy was going to college. So they took me over for that, and on the side of that, I was going. The CCW was actually merged with Jakar, doing it with their schools. So I was actually learning refereeing on the side too. On top of that. And then, obviously my ring announcing days were done and over with. And then I just became a full-time referee, I think, in 2007. Okay. I've been doing refereeing, since 2007 then, on there. So I kind of came up in a really good time in the business as far as, as far as the indies in the South Jersey, Philly area.
Awesome. Well, like we stated off rip, we're here to celebrate H2O 8 effing years. If you could, tell us how you first got involved with H2O and what's the journey been like up to this point.
I fell into it. It was actually a funny thing. Matt Tremont actually was running a wrestling store down in the Berlin market down here in South Jersey, actually. It was like basically collectibles, DVDs, figures, memorabilia and stuff like that. I saw there was a random news site on there. They were saying like, wrestling in Woodbury Heights, New Jersey, and I knew where the building was. It was actually 10 minutes from my house. Wow. And I saw it was him. It was Tremont versus Kevin Sullivan was the advertised main event. I'm like, so I hit Matt up. I was cool with Matt actually, for a little bit. Not as close as I was and that I am now with him, but we were friendly back then. I'm like, I actually asked him like, hey, who's running this this show on there? He's like kayfabe is actually me on there. It was a side project that him, and God rest his soul, Danny Havoc were actually just doing on the side, on there. It was basically just just something just to fool around with, basically, because he was actually part owner of On Point Wrestling, which is actually a precursor to H2O. On there, you can actually find a lot of On Point stuff on IWTV's website on there from like past shows. But they use the same building, that's why. So, yeah. But basically, it was like I hit him up with that, and he's like, yeah, it's just a side project we were doing. And I kind of just asked him, like, hey, you need a referee for it? He's like, yeah, sure, come on down. On there, he actually booked me and I think one or two of the other CCW referees at the time that was on the crew on there. So we were just doing some side stuff. We would actually piggyback off of CCW shows on there. Like Matt would run every 3 months on like a Friday, and then CCW was running that same Saturday. So a lot of the boys that were in the area, they kind of double shot, on there without having to travel so far. That's basically one of the earliest memories. I'm one of the few that's actually left from the original show, not counting Matt actually. So there's maybe 3 of us floating around on there. Like whenever Cannonball comes around, he's probably the other one.
Okay. How have you seen the promotion evolve over the years?
It literally became from, Matt refers to this as the old mom and pop store on there because there's no backers, so to speak. There's no money guys behind him. Like everything is all him. Him and his wife, basically put everything into the company. Slowly at the time, the building we were using was actually owned by old ECW referee Jim Alado on there, and the only thing Jim wouldn't let us use in the building was glass. So a lot of the early day H2O shows you'd watch, and it was basically just hardcore. Barbed wire was always in there, but no glass, so there's no tubes, no panes, or anything like that. So it's it's kind of it's an old Fight Club, so to speak. But we merged a lot of story, and characters into the early shows, on there. And like a lot of the guys you still see now, like, Bam Sullivan, Mouse, those guys are still around. They came around from like second or third show they were on. And now, they're one of the few that are actually still left. But, a lot of Matt, gets a lot of characters. He gets a lot of storytelling in there. on there. That's kind of what the one thing that's evolved on there. It's become a little more violent, so to speak, but, to keep up with the times, I'm like, that's what a lot of the fans want nowadays. They want a lot of the, deathmatch scene is pretty big now, than what it was, say, 2010, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's actually a perfect segue here because H2O is a hardcore based promotion, and we've had a few hardcore and deathmatch referees on the show before, and I definitely want to get your input on this. What would you say are some of the challenges being a referee, a senior referee at that, in a primarily hardcore wrestling promotion as is something that leans a little bit more traditional?
You love working in shows where there's going to be no debris in the ring. You kind of take that part for granted on there. I'm like, it's like, wow, it's like I don't have to put gloves on. I'm like, I can actually, it's kind of passe in that aspect. I'm like, I take it for granted, so much now with everything. I'm like, but it's almost like force of habit. I'm like, oh, I got to put gloves on. I'm like, oh no, this is actually a regular wrestling match. I'm like, oh damn, it's you don't get used to that part, on there. I'm like, but a lot of the challenges. I'm like, it's always, your gear is always a pain because I'm like, I don't know, I can't tell you how many pairs of pants I go through, just from like the glass being ripped up on there, and stuff like that. I'm like, it takes a toll on the wallet every now and then, but I don't do it that often, so that's kind of one of the only few challenges, really, so to speak. It's that, and trying to watch for flying debris. That's the hard part. That's where you got to be on your P's and Q's with everything with that stuff.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I remember it was probably 10 plus years ago, but I went to a CCW show up in Dayton, and it was a panes of glass match, and I was front row, and they're just shards of glass flying over, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I just, where am I?
They're the easy match. As scary as it may sound, I'm like, panes of glass are actually easier to work with instead of light tubes. Light tubes I could never stand. I could never stand light tubes. I'm like, back in the day, I'm like, GCW owner Brett Lauderdale was actually on the GCW ref crew on there. Any match that would have like light tubes or anything like that, I would tell him, like, hey, do you mind taking these? Like, no, I don't mind on there. I couldn't stand, because it's so much sharper on there, and there's so many bigger shards that you got to break down, and then the ends of the tubes, you got to get rid of, and throw them out of the ring and stuff like that. They can cut you up pretty bad. I'm like, panes of glass are actually, it's just, they break, you're done. Get a couple of the bigger shards, put them off to the side, but you can actually count normally in that, as weird as that may sound.
Yeah.
Tubes you kind of can't. Tubes just suck.
That's fair. So being there since day one, what would you say is the craziest moment, the most memorable moment you've had in the ring there?
God, in that ring? Oh, Jesus Christ. I've been through the ringer on that one, really, on there. Actually, I got to do my first, this is almost like 10 years into my ref career. I got to do my first 200 light tube match there on there, which was actually with Matt and Alex Colon on there. They were doing the old, we used to have an old gimmick show, the Subterranean Violence, which was the all death match show that we used to do back in the day, which was maybe like every 3-4 months. We actually kind of stopped that whole gimmick, on there. We kind of retired it on there, but that was one crazy moment. Even seeing Matt's at that time, his retirement match with him in RSP on there with one of the Danny Havoc shows. I couldn't remember which one it was. Maybe like 2020 on there, somewhere right around there. That was kind of a surreal moment, because you would never think that Matt would actually retire. But I'm like, yeah, Matt had enough of the business at that time. He just could not stand that business, anymore. Obviously, then you see how he got back a year later and wrestled Onita. That was another crazy moment. That was actually in a stadium in Trent, New Jersey. Okay. They did that. Did the explosion match with him and Onita, the singles match that they never actually had. So that was kind of crazy. I wasn't in the ring for that one. I'm like, that was Mike Keener on there. I kind of gave him the honors and gave him the rub. Here, you can go work with Onita and Explosives. Have fun. Oh, he cursed me through the day, literally driving it home. He's like, "Yeah, I hate you for this." I'm like, "What?" I know I like to spread it around. I'm like, I don't like to work with the same guys all the time. If it's like legends like that, I'm like, if I worked with them like 3 or 4 times, I'll give another referee a chance because I'm like, I work with you enough. I'm like, here, have a chance, get the rub, so to speak.
Awesome. Well, we're going to give this show this weekend the rub here. 8-year anniversary show, 2 nights streaming live on IWTV, and I think we've got the graphic here that I'm going to pull up. But it sounds like there's a lot of great stuff happening. I think this is the night 1 card, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's night 1.
Yeah, and then night 2 coming up as well. Take us through kind of what are some of the larger stories right now? What are you tracking? What's got everybody buzzing about this show this weekend to really celebrate 8 years?
It's a little bit of everything, really, to be honest with you. On there, it's a lot of. There's some gimmicks that we haven't done in a while. I know, like, there's this soul death match. You got to actually look that up on YouTube, and if they do it the right way, that it's done from back then. I'm like, God help us all. On there, it was actually an old death match that I remember from WXW Germany. On there, I believe. I don't know who was actually in it. Thumbtack Jack was I think the originator of it. On there, and it's kind of a disturbing death match, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then if Neil actually wins that, he's got to defend against Casey Kirk, and I think they're actually doing no rope barbed wire bare boards. Which is actually going back almost to what Casey did in her first death match with Jimmy Lloyd in the CCW. On her, she actually did it was the Squirt Circle Sacrifice, they called it, and they did it was no rope barbed wire. It was the boards were just still there, but they had some of the barbed wire was actually they had explosives wrapped around it too on top of that. So we don't really dabble around with the explosives too much. I think maybe we only had 2 on there, so thank God for that. So explosives are kind of hard to work around. I mean, you got to know where they're at, really, to be honest with you. Not to really pull back the curtain too much on there. So that's really, you got to find out where they're at.
It's got to be safe and spectacular. So yeah,
exactly.
All right, so I'm going to go off a little bit of the beaten path. I can see you drinking coffee.
I'm drinking coffee. Yeah, it's 8:00 at night.
As a
I'm up at 5:30 in the morning, so
I get it. My alarm goes off at 4 a.m. I get it.
Oh yeah, exactly.
As the coffee enthusiast, what should I be drinking to wake me up now in the morning?
If you got a Keurig or anything like that, okay. I used to back in the day. I actually when I worked for WSU, which was a CCW sister promotion. I would actually always text Pepper Parks and Cherry Bomb, or Allie and the Butcher, however however you want to refer to them as what they are. They live up in Buffalo on there, and Allie's actually Canadian. She would actually go over the border for me and actually get Tim Hortons K-Cups for me, because down here in South Jersey area, you couldn't get them at the time on there. Now I can get them in almost any store. So on there, now they're coming out with different flavors on there. There's actually they got a maple K-Cup, which is actually really good on there. It's a medium roast, which I'm not a fan of. I'm all about dark roast coffees. So that's one thing. If you want something to wake you up, Death Wish coffee, which you can actually get from Walmart on there, whatever Walmart is on there, you can actually get K-Cups from there, or the ground coffee if you have a single serve coffee maker on there. So yeah, they're the 2 you should really be looking at. There's probably more, but they're my 2 favorites.
So is it cream, sugar, milk, or just straight black?
Oh, always it's half and half. I'm kind of a sugar junkie, so I'll get always extra sugar in it. Or if I'm near near a Dunkin' Donuts, I'm like, it's usually always like extra splendid because sugar. I can try to get away from sugar all the time, but sugar substitutes are there.
Again, as a guy that used to work at Dunkin' Donuts, you're the guy in the drive-thru that goes the 10-10, and I'm like, oh man, this guy.
Yeah, I'm that guy. I'm like, yeah, extra, please. I'm like, but now since you guys actually have your own creamers now, out, I can just buy it at the shop right now, so I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, Nick, from a sugar junkie to a wrestling junkie, I have to ask you this. And we give everybody this opportunity. We've been talking all things ref. Nick Papagiorgio for about 20 minutes now, so we're going to give you the spotlight now as we're moving on to the back half of 2024. Who are some names, whether they're wrestlers, ring announcers, referees, anybody in the wrestling industry that should be getting some looks, be getting some love in 2024? Who should we be keeping an eye on?
Well, besides myself, obviously, that's beside the point. Always got to put your stuff over every now and then.
Sure.
On there. But one of our old ring announcers, he's not very old, but Chad Spectacular is actually one of the other H2O ring announcers. He's taking a little sabbatical. He's getting mental health back to normal. So he's been off for a couple months. On there. I've been there before. I took some time off when I got married 10 years ago. On there. So. I didn't take enough time off, but he's 6+ months into it. So, he's one to watch out for as far as ring announcers go. I'm like, he does wrestle too. On top of that, another promotion. I'll pull promotions into it. Intergender Bonanza. That I'm a part of too.
Yeah.
Stan Styles puts a lot of stuff into this. It kind of flies under the radar a lot. His promotion. I'm like. As scary as it sounds, I'm like, he's coming up to the 21. There you go. Exactly. Perfect. On there. It's the epitome of the promotion right there. You can actually watch me be a heel there too on there. But he puts so much into the promotion. I'm like, he's actually 21 shows going into it, right now too, which is kind of insane from a little, spot show in West Virginia that he did years ago to what it is now. And the promotion is blown up, beyond belief, on there. Guys to watch out for him, like, both Kirks, Brandon and Casey, they're so underrated with what they do. Even stuff that you may watch with Brandon this weekend with against him and Killdozer. Just, even if you watched TOS from GCW, he bled buckets and he just, he busts his ass, on there. But I'm like, he's never been, in my eyes, never been, really been given like the, the right rub, so to speak, the right push, if you want to look at it like that, on her in promotions and stuff like that. So, he's, him and her both, watch out. I'm like, I know Casey just came off an injury. I think she had a broken nose, on her that she took some time off from the recover, on her, and she's phenomenal in, death matches. That's another one that's, she hasn't really been doing it so, too long, but I'm like, she's so over. It's insane, on there. So, but, referees to look out for. I'm like, I'll toot my own horn. I'm like Jimmy Deacon, which is my other counterpart in H2O. I'm like, he's coming up. He's only about maybe a year and a half in, on there. Shiny Shoes. You may see an H2O, / Cody Manhorn, so to speak. Sorry. He'll probably yell at me for this now, whatever, if he sees this on there. But yeah, he's another referee to watch out for. Ref Gina, she's up in Gina Monty. She's another IWTV referee. They're probably, I'll always put over the IWTV referees, on there. Any day of the week. Even death matches. They both do. They do a phenomenal job doing it on there. But yeah, they're mostly the people I put over. Right now at least. There's probably more, but I'm old and can't figure it out.
All right, now the hardest question you're going to get probably for the rest of the year, and this is something we ask every guest that's on this show. When you think Mr. WrestleMania, is it Shawn Michaels or The Undertaker?
Oh man, Jesus!
We're not pulling any punches here.
Wow.
And there is a right answer, by the way.
No, there's not.
See, wow, Mr. WrestleMania between the two of them. I think he should have retired with the streak on there. I really would have to put the Undertaker as it on there. I watched I love I got to see him hang the Boss Man live at WrestleMania 15. Man, that was a sight to be. That was that was a sight, so to speak. On there it was and I was only I think I was only like 17 watching it at that time. On there, I went to Mania myself at that one too. That was in Philly. That was the first Philly one. On there, it was a terrible WrestleMania though, but that's beside the point. On there, but that was I have to put Taker on there. To be honest with you, I just think he's had more matches. Obviously, he's got the 24 matches, 23 matches. Yeah, what's he 22 and 1? Something like that.
22 and 2.
22 and 2. Okay.
Yeah, I think 22 and 2. Yeah.
He lost to Reigns and Reigns and Lesnar. That's right. Okay, That's right. I always forget about the infamous Roman Reigns match in the other Orlando Mania. I always forget they did that one.
Yeah.
They really should actually had Roman actually beat him if they're going to have it. Just imagine the rub he would have got back then.
Yeah.
Lesnar didn't need it. He had the credentials, behind him. He didn't need it.
I will say, you might be the first person to answer, and the first match you talk about is Undertaker Boss Man.
Actually, yeah.
That might be a one and only, but your justification was, it's Taker. He hung the Boss Man.
That's all you needed to see on the match. Because the match was terrible too on there. God rest Boss Man's soul on there, but that was a terrible match. You could see. I think you saw Taker blade twice in there, literally up close. Yep. On there. I'm like, wow, you guys couldn't pan to another camera? Come on.
Well, Nick, this has been an absolute pleasure. Congratulations to you and H2O on 8 effing years. It's absolutely fantastic. Before we let you go, where can everybody find you on social media? Other than this weekend, what else do you have coming up that everybody can check out, and where can everybody see you?
You can follow me on social media on Facebook and Twitter /X, whatever you want to refer to it as. You can get it on there as right there. If I can, my finger's pointing right there. Right at there, Nick Papagiorgio on both of them. Facebook, Twitter. Schedule goes. Oh God, I gotta look over because I don't really know my own bookings half the time. I know after the eight years, there's a new upstart promotion in Philly called the Wrestling Independent. We have a show on July 14th in Philly. On there, it's actually a 6 p.m. bell time. We're not on any. They're not on any streaming service yet. On there, because this will be their third show, I think, going into it. So they've been drawing very big crowds because Philly doesn't really have any wrestling, besides what goes on down the 2300 Arena, and that's usually TNA and MLW on there. But MLW doesn't run Philly too much anymore. So, it's right down there is a TNA, right now. After that, I think, I believe we're running H2O, I think, returns on July 20th. On there, obviously all of our shows are on IWTV, 8 o'clock bell. I think there's actually 2 shows in July that we might have on there. So I don't know, July 28th rings a bell for some reason too, without looking at the calendar.
Yeah.
On there, that's another one. That might be an afternoon show on a Sunday on there. So yeah, they're the 2 next shows on there. Summer times are usually pretty light around the area because everybody goes down to the shore, Jersey Shore area. So it's vacation time. So, it's not very, too many people in the area. So, we kind of keep the schedule light, so to speak.
Nice. I like it. Well, once again, Nick, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations again. Work hard, play hard, enjoy the rest of the summer, my friend. That's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Wrestling Junkies Podcast. For Ref Nick Papagiorgio, for the podcast dad of Mr. Cincinnati, and we'll talk to you guys soon.